make the world a better place. All right? But we have to recognise that the way we view the world as researchers also affects the way we do research, how we view what is good research, and how the language that we use when we're discussing that, and also what we think are good outcomes from the research. Here's some references on there if you're interested in it. So it's about paradigms. So any questions about paradigms from anybody? No? Stunned silence. Usually some people have some questions. Has anyone thought about where do they, let's do a bit of a survey. Where do you see yourselves? Who sees yourself in this sort of positivist framework? And no one really put their hand up? No one sees themselves as a positivist? You've got to be one or the other. Or a constructivist, right? We got one person, two people. So everyone else doesn't know, all right? But you need to think about where you view yourself as a researcher, how you view your research, whether you fit into any of those paradigms or not. But like I said, broadly speaking, most people are in one or the other when we're thinking about agriculture research. All right? We're going to have a break for a couple of minutes, and then we will talk about mind mapping, because you need to get on to the first assignment. So we'll just take a break. It's now 1 minute, maybe 3 minutes, and we start back at 10:05. I'm just going to pause this recording here.
Yeah. Not really.
Alright, so, but you need to people ideas now. Okay, let's start again. So, resume. Okay, just starting the recording again. So, in your first assignment, you need to develop a mind map. And there's a bit of a tutorial on here, which I just realised some of these things we've changed a little. But essentially, at some point in your program as a research student, you'll have to come up with a research project. All right, and in order to do that, for your actual project, you're normally doing that in consultation with a potential supervisor, and so you don't do this independently. But for the purpose of this course, you need to pick a topic that is of interest to you, and so the first assignment will be you can pick any topic that you might want to think about, that's in the general area of your interest in agriculture, and we want you to develop a mind map. All right. So mind maps, some people have probably already done mind mapping. Has anyone done this before? Often people have. I do it a lot, particularly when we start thinking about conceptualising new projects, and you've got a group of people, and it's a way of, creative way of developing your ideas around a particular topic. It says, why not use a list or an essay plan? Well, I think because of that creative aspect. So, using something that's visual allows you to be, I think it lets your mind sort of roam around the ideas a bit more rather than making lists or writing an essay. So it's mostly that idea about, allowing creativity. There's various types of mind maps. So it's an effective tool for thinking about an issue. It's a creative process that engages different parts of your brain. It's also really good if you're working in groups, because you can everyone can see the structure of what you're developing, and you can work collaboratively on this. This is an example from one of Helen's research projects in the Moreton Bay Islands, and so they were developing a mind map. I'll see if I can make this bigger. All right, so they started in the middle here about users and uses of the Moreton Bay Island and the Moreton Bay Marine Park and the islands. Okay, so that was the central issue they started with, and then they started exploring various issues around that. So you can see my map is going outwards from that central idea. They started over here thinking about industry in this part of the diagram, and the interactions about the industries in the Moreton Bay, the government regulations, so regulatory bodies, local government roles, impacts on the environment here, and then they started thinking about community, and down here is tourism, so impacts of tourism on the Moreton Bay Islands. And in the end, that's what they identified as, so they started thinking about the economic value of recreation in the Moreton Bay. Was where they came down to as their sort of their research topic that they came to after exploring all these different areas around the central topic of the Moreton Bay Marine Park and the islands, and who uses it and what are the various uses of it. So you can see that was as a way of exploring that topic. So essentially you start with a topic in the centre, and you make branches out from that topic, and to enlarge on your understanding around it. All right, so that's the example. See if I can get this go up. So how can mind map help you with your assignments? There's some ideas about this, so you can use mind maps for anything. So one of the ways is helping you with your assignments. So if you can use them with reference managing software, so you could, before you start, you could put the main topic in the middle, and then you add your ideas around that, and then as you read things, you can attach them to the different boxes. And then that provides you with a structure for helping you to write up the different sections and avoid plagiarism. So here's another example of a mind map. I'll make it a bit smaller, using some sort of software to generate it. Now, having said that, we're not expecting you to use any software for this assignment or the assignments in this course. It's quite adequate to hand write mind maps, and I think in some ways it's actually more effective when you just do it, hand write it, or use a whiteboard or something like that to draw it up, or a piece of paper, because it allows you to be a bit more free thinking and not worrying about the software. So don't feel like that you're not going to get any worse marks or better marks if you do it in a piece of software or you draw it up by hand. All right, and then just scan it or take a photograph and submit that. But again, there's another example. This one starting with human-wildlife interactions in the middle and thinking about the issues around those interactions, positive and negative interactions. So you've got positive interactions down here about viewing wildlife, negative interactions in relation to feral animals. Okay, this one's a little bit different, and you can see they've actually got some linkages between areas on the mind map. So we've got one here from culling of feral animals, potential use as food, and in here as a healthy, as a potential food product, being a beneficial aspect. But like I said, everybody who would do a mind map would potentially come up with slightly different construction of this. This is from Tony Buzan. Again, this is using another way, just to give you different examples. They're putting little pictures in it. Some people, I've had some students actually do this type of mind map where they're a bit more creative and a bit more artistic, and they draw little pictures, and but it depends what you want. There's another way. So instead of having, the ones up here where we've got boxes with things written in it, like Helen's one up the top, and arrows connecting those boxes, you can draw branches and label the branches in this way. All right? And so you can think about just another way of doing a mind map, and either way is valid. Depends what you prefer to do. All right. So this one is exploring health and issues around health, diet, stress, exercise, sleep. So this was originally set up as a paired exercise, but what I'd like you to do now, and the guys at St. Lucia would do the same thing, I want you to start. It's a bit harder because I'm not there, but I can talk to you guys a bit about it next week when you're there and your mind maps. But I'd like you to pull out a piece of paper and start thinking. You can do it in groups. It's probably easier if you want to just get together with a few people next to you and start thinking about some topic in agriculture. Now, look, we could do that. We'll just do it as an example. We'll just start with something. I'm going to just change this over. But all I'm asking you to do is, look, just think out some issue in agriculture. Anybody? Just tell me something, and we'll do something. Anybody got an idea?
Water harvesting.
Water harvesting. So we could. I'm not sure if this pen's going to work. It's not. I'm going to find another one. Okay, so we think about water harvesting. What are some issues relating to water harvesting? I assume what you mean is like a collection of surface rainfall water for agricultural purposes, yeah? Or it could be for other purposes. So we could think about that maybe in terms of, none of these pens are going to work. I haven't used them for a while. I'll find another one. Always pays to have a backup. So you could think about harvesting for agriculture. What else is water harvested for?
Domestic use.
Sorry?
Domestic use.
Domestic use. Otherwise, we might do it.
Or livestock.
If we take livestock as different from agriculture, yeah. Grazing, livestock. Might be industrial uses. All right, but we could, and there might be some environmental. And then we sort of think about these uses. If we think about domestic use, for instance, water harvesting, we could think about maybe rural versus rural and urban uses. And that was just in the media this last week. People in rural areas in Australia running out of water and droughts. So anyway, all I'm saying is you just need to start with something in the middle, start thinking about issues around that, and there's not really any right or wrong way. Just let your mind start thinking about issues and topics around it. The biggest problem you normally have is come down to a research topic is perhaps starting too broad, and then it gets difficult to actually narrow it down sufficiently to come to a research topic. So if you find that you're starting with something and you're coming down a particular branch, you can always start again from a lower level down there and start exploring issues around that again. All right. So what I'd like you to do is to get into groups, start thinking about an issue that you could be the subject of research in agriculture. Like I said, it could be anything. It could be impacts of water management and water harvesting, and then start thinking around that topic. And the idea that we want you to come to is as you explore down through the branches of that tree, to come down and start thinking about, well, this could be an area that is researchable. That could be the subject of research for a master's project. Now, to be researchable for a master's project, there's some constraints that you have to think about. You have to think about, well, it's something that I can do within a research project that can be implemented within 2 semesters, right? So less than like 10 months. It's something that can be done with relatively minimal resources, all right? Something that is of interest to you as a scientist, all right? But this has to have a scope that's sufficiently narrow that it can be accomplished within that time period is the main thing, all right? All right. The other aspect of it being researchable also means that, we'll talk about this next week a bit more, it means that you have to be able to collect some information to answer that question. Right? So if it's not actually possible to collect information to answer that question, then it's not researchable. So it has to have a narrow enough scope to be practical and achievable, and it also has to be something you can actually physically measure or observe or collect information in some way that will answer that question. All right? Anyway, have a go. Guys at St. Lucia, we'll get you to show us what you've done in a couple of minutes. So get together in groups, and you can come up the front and you can turn on your doc cam and we can see what you've done. But you might have to call up the admin people to help you with that. All right. Or if you got questions, come up to the microphone and yell it out, okay? So go. I'll give you 10 minutes. So 15 minutes. I can see you guys at St. Lucia, so don't go to sleep.
Obviously, I could. Like you were saying, yeah, when the temperature is not stable outside. You can write after that climate, greenhouse. Greenhouse. Because obviously everyone is under the same climate. And we don't have clusters. But we can have the
I don't know what is
No, we're doing group work right now.
Right now,
Yeah.
and the lecture is at the other end,
Yes.
waiting for you to finish your group.
Yes.
I got another lecture at this time, but it's okay. It's okay, thanks.
And then the right kind of departments they use
Start making it. By the time
How you going at St. Lucia? You look like you're busy. I've asked the AV guys to turn up there to switch you over in about 15 minutes. Alright. Okay, so we might hey guys. So somebody like to come up and share what they've done so far? Anybody? I pick on you guys, should have you can come up and share. You had a point you'd like to share what you've done? Nominated representative. Alright, so we're just going to have a look here at what one of the groups has done. You just drop it on here and it should come up there, and if you stand here they can hear you.
Okay, so we started with the impact of climate change, and we then looked at its impact on agriculture and how it affects animal production, crop production and agribusiness, and then a flow-on effect of that of the economic impact, and then the income pressures and social pressures that it then creates. And then we looked at social issues from climate change, so things like health and community development. So it often leads to people moving away from their traditional homes. And then we looked at environmental issues, so water resources and rainfall, so lack of rainfall and the salinity issues that come from that, and impacts on wildlife, and then we looked at resources, so forest degradation and water degradation, etc.
Yeah. Very good.
Take that away.
Yes. Have you got anyone else like to share something? Everyone's hiding from me. No one's looking, making eye contact. You guys there? The front rows copying it today. I'll have to ask the back row next week to share. Sort of in the top middle.
Yes.
I think it's. Can you guys see that? Yeah.
Okay, so we went with crop pricing, right? And we started to think about things that could affect it. So quality of the crop, if it's normal, if it's organic, that's going to affect the price of the crop. The supply and demand, if there's a shortage or a surplus of the crop, it's going to affect the price ultimately. The variety in the seasons, if it's dry season, if it's wet, if you have natural disasters like droughts, floods. Diseases of the crops, if you have virus, if you have insects. If the crop is a commodity, if it's a grain, if it's a salt, it's going to affect the price of the crop. Macroeconomy, finances, both in the country and people at home, and labor force. And competition between international products and domestic products can affect as well. And that's it.
All right. Okay. Anyone else got something they'd like to share? Or everyone's too scared the rest of the class. Yeah, St. Lucia, I'm hoping that someone will turn up there in a couple of minutes to turn on your microphone and so we can see what you've done. But basically what we're trying to do is some people in here had only written one word. Now you don't need to be scared because there's actually no wrong answers when you're doing this. It's really a way of, like I said, it's just a way of allowing you to explore ideas around that topic. Now, some people I noticed started with very general topics. I mean, you guys started with, what was it, climate? What was in the middle?
Impact of climate change.
Impact of climate, which is quite a general topic, but you actually managed to get down to a really relatively low level. Oh, I failed. I thought I'd turn that off. Alright. First one has their phone ringing in the class is me. So glad everyone else has turned theirs off. What was I saying? So I think sometimes what the problem you have is you start from too general a topic, and sometimes it's hard to get down to the bottom. If you find that that's difficult, then maybe start from one of the other nodes again and explore further down the trees from that. All right, but the idea is what you can do is use this as a way of exploring ideas around the topic. And I don't know if any of you has anyone got to anything that might be a research topic? Got lower now, down the tree? Maybe you guys were getting close to something when you started thinking about some of the social aspects, perhaps, or you actually at some point you need to get far enough down away from that general topic in order to start thinking about things which could be researchable questions. Nobody's turned up there at St. Lucia yet. No. We could, if somebody's game to go up the front, I might be able to talk you through it. Is somebody game to try? Oh, come on, one of you guys. It's a bit like playing with your phone. You can't really break it. Or you can, but no one's going to. All right. First we have to get the sound on. All right, so there's a button down the bottom that says volume. All right, if you touch the one that says volume, you should say there will be something that says lectern mic, and you need to unmute that. All right. Have we got any Any sound yet from St. Lucia? Nothing yet. Any success? So push go to volume and then unmute the microphone. No? I think I can hear somebody. Maybe you have to turn the volume up. Can you try increasing the volume?
Yeah.
We got another volunteer.
This is like, oh gosh. Okay. That's ceiling mic.
So you go on the volume and then make sure the lectern mic is unmuted. If it's got the red bar is way down, just have it so it goes up. No, it's not working. No luck? No. Alright, we might have to give up. I'll talk to you maybe about it next week.
Audience camera.
We'll just give them a couple more minutes to see if they're able to guys. Oops. Well, we've got your screen, but we haven't got any volume.
That cam.
You need to turn the microphone on.
It says
We had your
it's
screen there,
unmuted.
but we still haven't got any sound.
I'm sorry? Audience camera. Dot cam. I don't know. Does anyone else
Right,
want to
now
try?
we've lost everybody. Now I can't see you. Alright, I can see you and see the screen. Let's see if you can get the volume on. That's good. Just leave that presentation the way it is. See if you can turn the volume button on.
The volume is up.
Otherwise I can call your mobile phone and we can just do it over the phone.
Ceiling radio.
If you write your mobile number up there, I'll call it. How's that?
What did you say?
We can just do it that way. No? No, give it up. Oh, that's my screen. That's mine. Yeah, they had mine. I'm not sure. Alright, St. Lucia guys, what I'll do is I'll catch up with you next week and we'll talk about what you've done. I might let you go and we'll catch up with you next week, okay? So sorry about that, we haven't been able to get the technology, but I'll follow up with you next week at St. Lucia, okay? Alright, so if you guys want to head off, I'll just do something more with these guys and then I'll do it with you guys next week, alright? Okay? Alright, thank you. Oh no, just before you go, I wanted to show you one thing. On the course profile, I hadn't talked about it. So I actually just realised I put this backwards from last week, but under learning activities on the course profile, it actually lists what we're going to do. And as I say, I've already stuffed this up for this week. I said I was going to be at St. Lucia this week, so I'll be at St. Lucia next week, and we'll redo some of this with you next week at St. Lucia. And so, but if you look at this, it actually tells you where the tutorials are going to be and what we're going to do in the lectures for the whole of the semester. Okay, so some weeks there won't be a tutorial at each location, but most of the weeks we try to repeat it. So some of the things like the social science ones, we've got a couple extra people. They will do the tutorials at both locations. But some of the others, like we were doing the Excel tutorials, we'll just do it 1 week at Gat and 1 week at St. Lucia. Alright. Anyway, sorry we couldn't get the sound working at St. Lucia, but I'll catch you guys next week, okay? And I'm going to turn off the call and I'll see you next week, okay? So thanks for turning up. And I'm going to just end the call to St. Lucia now.
I was trying to get that. That's the one that I was thinking was making a difference. That's the one I couldn't figure out. No, I was like, that one main screen was like, I felt like I was at a pilot. But then I was looking at the lecture and tutorial. So I'm wondering sure. I'm a change. I'm actually studying so I'm on exchange from them.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you are actually doing your school program in Canada or something like that. Yeah, pretty similar.
I was trying to understand what he was saying. Most of it is like this.